Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to jump right into one of the most heated debates in modern Indian politics, the battle over so-called freebies. But look, this is about so much more than just election promises. It really gets to the heart of a huge question: who should a nation's wealth truly serve? You know, this whole thing often gets boiled down to just one provocative phrase, Revdi culture, which is a term used by critics. It basically compares welfare policies to handing out cheap sweets, framing them as these reckless giveaways. And that language, right off the bat, sets the stage for a really divided argument. So what exactly are we talking about here? Well, when we say freebie in this context, we're talking about government policies that give people essential services, things like electricity, water, or healthcare, at a very low cost or even for free. Okay, so now that we're all on the same page, let's start digging into the arguments from both sides. At its core, this isn't just about economics. It's really a clash of political and social ideals. What's so fascinating is how one single policy can be seen in two totally different ways. On one hand, you've got supporters who say these programs are absolutely essential tools for social justice, a way to guarantee a basic level of dignity for citizens who are really struggling with rising costs. But then you have the critics who look at the very same thing and see total fiscal recklessness, a dangerous path that could bankrupt the state. Let's take a closer look at what the critics are saying. Their argument basically rests on three key points. First off, they say governments just can't afford these huge subsidy programs forever. Second, there's the argument that it creates a culture of dependency, that it discourages people from working. And finally, they believe the end result is inevitable. The state's finances will just collapse under the pressure of all these promises.
It's a pretty compelling argument, right? It's all based on fiscal discipline. But it also brings up a really important counter question. Think about it. While everyone's debating the cost of a little free electricity for a family, are they the only ones benefiting from public money? And that question, well, it brings us to the other side of the coin. We're talking about a kind of subsidy that gets way less public criticism, but involves, honestly, way more money. These are the subsidies that flow upwards. We're talking about things like huge tax breaks for big corporations, giving away public land at massively discounted prices, writing off or restructuring enormous loans from public banks, and even changing policies to help out specific industries. All of these are, when you boil it down, massive financial benefits paid for with public money. Now, the official reason we're given for these kinds of deals is always about the bigger picture, right? They're not called handouts. Oh no. They're framed as strategic investments designed to attract money, boost the economy, and most importantly, create jobs for everybody. This contrast really forces us to take a step back and ask a more fundamental, almost philosophical question. Who actually owns a nation's public wealth? I mean, who does it really belong to, and what's its main purpose? And again, we see two totally competing ideas. On one side, you have the welfare state view. This says that the number one job of public wealth is to make sure every single citizen has a basic level of dignity and security. And on the other side, there's the growth-first perspective. This view says the best way to use public wealth is to give incentives to private companies, because that's what creates jobs and makes everyone better off in the long run. The problem, as a lot of people point out, isn't that one of these ideas is right and the other is wrong. The real issue is the huge double standard in how we talk about them and how much scrutiny they get. And this table just lays it out perfectly. I mean, just look at the language here. When a regular household gets free electricity, what's the label? Irresponsible populism. But when a giant corporation gets a massive tax break, well, that's called an economic reform. It's the same principle, using public funds to provide a benefit, but the labels couldn't be more different. So, this is more than just words. This double standard creates this really damaging feeling among the public that, you know what, the whole system is rigged. That the rules for financial scrutiny are just much tougher for the average person than they are for the powerful and well-connected. So, where do we go from here? The idea isn't to just pick a side, but to start demanding a more balanced approach, one that's built on equal accountability for everyone. You see, the real goal here shouldn't be to get stuck in this false choice between helping citizens or helping corporations. The goal should be to build a system where every single rupee of public money, no matter where it's going, is used transparently and effectively to serve the broader public interest. So what does that path to fairness look like? Well, it involves a few really key steps. First, it means designing welfare programs that are actually smart and target people who genuinely need help. Second, it means that when we give incentives to corporations, they have to be transparent, and we have to hold those companies accountable for the jobs they promise. Third, we need strict, unbiased oversight on any loan restructuring or write-offs, no exceptions. And finally, it means making those big long-term investments in things that lift everyone up, like health and education.
You know, when you strip everything else away, this entire debate really just comes down to one simple but incredibly powerful question for any democracy. Who does the Treasury truly serve? Because in the end, the principle behind it all is actually pretty simple. A nation's treasury, it's not supposed to be a private bank for a privileged few. It doesn't matter if they're powerful companies or specific groups of voters. It is meant to be the shared inheritance of an entire nation. And making sure it's actually used that way, well, that's the real challenge.